all my students. Welcome back to Social Science class. In past three classes, we have learnt about ancient civilizations of India. By next week, there will be an oral test and written test. And students, read the classwork, that is workbook, the textbook thoroughly and sincerely. The marks you obtained in the test will be considered and entered in the registers. In today's class, we shall revise the three parts of ancient civilizations of India. Before starting, a sincere request to you all, take your running notes as well as the textbook and start underlining the important points, keywords, which will help you to learn easily. Now, let's start the lesson. Ancient civilizations of India. In ancient civilizations of India, we have learned Harappan civilization and Vedic Age. And in Vedic Age, we have divided into two, that is Rig Veda period and post-Rig Veda period. Now, we'll revise Harappan civilization. Harappan civilization, when nomadic life became stable. So in this civilization, how the nomadic people were staying in one place, that is became stable in one place. So in two places they became stable, that is one is Bursaham and another one is Mehergar. Bursaham people lived in shallow pits in order to protect themselves from cold weather and wild animals. They used to cook food inside the pits or outside the pits in accordance with weather. So here you have to note down Bursaham and shallow pits. You can underline these two words. Next is Mehergar site. Mehergar site was in Bolan Pass. Here, people were living in houses which had 4 or more rooms. This was a first village came to our notice. They were the first one to cultivate wheat and barley. Apart from that, they were rearing cattle. Here, people and animals were buried together. So in this Mehergar, Bolan Pass, you have to remember. And this was the first village which came to our notice that you can underline in your textbook. Next, about first urbanization. Harappan sites were discovered by engineers who were laying railway lines in the Sindhu Valley region of Punjab, which was called as Harappan civilization, which is of 4,600 years old. 4,600 years old. So here you have to underline Harappan sites, which was discovered by engineers, and Sindhu Valley. Where was it discovered? Sindhu Valley region. And next, about significance of the cities. Harappan cities normally were of 2 or more parts. The western part is narrow and at an elevated place. This was a citadel. The eastern part is wide and at a lower level, which is called lower town, which was the habitation of common people. And in the citadel, you can see the more prominent or important structures like great bath, fire altars, and granaries. The swimming pool at the Mohenjo-daro is called the Great Bath. It was built of bricks so as to prevent seepage of water, and it had steps on 2 sides and rooms all around. Water was supplied from a well and there was a drain to let the used water out. Historians were considered this would have been used by important people on special occasions. And in Kalibangan and local, there were fire altars where they used to do animal sacrifices. And there were systematic granaries in the places called Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Lothal. Now, we'll see the town planning. The town planning was the place where the common people used to live. There was systematically laid out houses and roads. Houses were 1 or 2 story, built of bricks with strong wall. Every house had bathroom and was connected with main drain outside. These cities had neatly laid out underground sewage system, and there was a hole in the main drain to do timely cleaning. Town life of the Harappan people. Apart from houses, archaeologists found precious stones, metals, gems, jewelry, beads, and seals. Harappan people were cultivating wheat, barley, pulses, mustard, and cotton. And they were weaving cloth from cotton. They have domesticated humped bull, cow, buffalo, sheep, goat, dog, and hen. And in this time, oxen were used to carry heavy loads. These people were giving prominent prominent place for trade. They had trade contracts with rural areas such as Baluchistan, Saurashtra, and the Deccan. And even Farsi trade like Mesopotamia. They had trade contracts with Mesopotamia, which was proved from the seals obtained. Though it was flourishing, it was declined over the time. So the historians cited various reasons such as changed course of river, destruction of forest, inundation of floods, migration of people to other areas. So these were the reasons which were cited by historians. Now let's move on to Vedic Age. Aryans compiled the Vedas. These people have come from Ural mountain slopes of southern Russia. According to B.K. Ghosh, these Aryans were leading the line based on Vedas. Thus, the culture followed by them was called as Vedic culture. Now, do you understand what is Vedic culture? And what is Vedic Age? The period between 1500 BCE to 700 BCE is called Vedic Age. Next, Rig Veda period or early Vedic period. The period between 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE is called Rig Veda period. And the period between 1000 BCE to 700 BCE is called as post Rig Veda period or later Vedic period. And these are very important questions. You can study it. And next is name 4 Vedas. Which are the 4 Vedas? Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. What are Vedas? If you see what are Vedas, Vedas are mainly compilation of nature worship, yaga, process of yagas, and black magic. They are called as Samites. Vedas are called as Samite. And each Samite has a text called Brahmana. And this explains, the Brahmana explains various ways of performing rituals. Every Brahmana has an Aranyaka and Upanishad. The Aranyaka gives instructions to hermits who live in the forest. And Upanishads are the reflective discourses on philosophy. Now let's move on to Rig Veda period. Rig Veda is the oldest and first among all the Vedas, which has 1028 suttas or prayer songs, which are grouped under 10 mandalas. The Rig Vedic people were settled in Hindu Kush mountains to doab of Ganga and Yamuna rivers. And the social system or the society of Rig Vedic people. At the time of entry, Aryans had 3 communities. Among them, they had 3 communities, that is aristocracy, priestly class, and common people. In 10th mandala of Rig Veda, that is in Purusha Sutta, it says that gods created Adi Purusha, whose mouth became Brahmanas, shoulders became Kshatriyas, thighs became Vaishyas, and feet became Shudras. The patriarchal family was the main social unit. In this society, the patriarchal family was the main social unit. The patriarchal system, here the male-dominated society was prevailing. The economic system, if you see, Rig Vedic people were basically into animal husbandry. They have given much importance for animal husbandry, and their wealth means, what do you mean by wealth in Rig Vedic period was, the wealth was calculated based on the number of cows, camels, horses and sheep. But still, the cultivated land was a part of their wealth. Cultivable land was called as kshetra. Cultivation was called as krishi. Oxen were used to lift water from well, and Eva is identified as barley. The brass and alloy was called as ayas. Other professions like apart from animal husbandry and agriculture, the other professions were like weaving and carpentry. Next political system. Here, the tribes were living in gramas, that is villages. The head of it was Rajan, and the Rajan was assisted by council of Sabha and Samiti. Sabha was limited to noble people and elders, whereas Samiti was a general assembly of the common people. The common people were ruled by Kashatra. Soldiers were called as Yodha. Now let's move on to religious system. Yajna was the epicenter of religious practices. Animal sacrifices were done to appease gods. To please the god, they used to do animal sacrifices. Yajnas were organized for two reasons. That is, to get good rains and harvest, and to defeat their enemies like Dasyus. The priest who conducts Yajnas was called as Hotur. In Rig Veda, for Agni god, 200 shlokas, and for Indra god, 250 shlokas were dedicated. God of cultivation. Apart from this, the god of cultivation was called as Kshetrasya Pati. And god of plow was called as Devi Sita. And each house had minor house deity was called as Vashutos Pati. Rigvedic language, if you see the Rigvedic language, was similar to, and their characters and the names were similar to Indo-Iranian language Avesta. Now we have discussed about the society, economic life, political system and religious system of Rigvedic period. Now we'll discuss about post-Vedic period, post-Rigveda period. In this also we'll be discussing about society, economic life, political life and religious system. Post-Rigveda period. During this period, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda were compiled and composed, and people were leading the life based on these Vedas. And these Vedas are named after three priests, namely Saman, Advaryu and Atharvan. The singer who sings the melodies of Samaveda was called as Udgatri. And the word Advaryu means the one who recites Yajur Sutras. And Atharvan or the Angira was a priest of fire. Yajurveda has different types of text called black or Krishna and white or Shukla Yajurveda. And Atharva Veda was similar to Rig Veda and taken much content from its 10th mandala, Purusha Sukta, and it uses the language of Brahmanas, rather ancient language. Now we'll see the social system. Already we have learnt about the 4 Varnas. Those 4 Varnas which we have studied in 10th mandala of Purusha Sukta became strong with some changes in post-Rig Veda period. Brahmanas, during this time, Brahmanas were conducting yajnas and rituals, and they were accepting the gifts for it. Related to God, all the importance were given to Brahmanas. Rajanya indicates Kshatriya Varna. They were soldiers who were trained in archery and they were waging war in chariots. Vaishyas were businessmen, merchants, farmers, and who were considered lower than the first 2 Varnas. Though they are considered as Aryans, they were considered lower than the first 2 Varnas. The last Varna was Shudras. They're part of Varna system, but they were considered to be non-Aryans. Dasas, Dasyus and Panis were included in Shudra system. And later on, the food collecting tribes like Nishada and Chandala also were grouped under untouchables. They were grouped as untouchables next to Shudras. Women were considered as, in the society of post-Rig Veda period, women were considered as the lowest in the social hierarchy, and they were considered as embodiment of lies. Dowry and polygamy was in practice during this time. There was no practice of child marriage. Widow could remarry during post-Rig Veda period. Next, about economic system. Due to the scarcity of water in the rivers Satluj and Yamuna, the people of Aryans, the people of Rig Vedic period moved towards Gangetic Valley. With the help of fire, they burned the forest. With the help of iron axes, they chopped off the trees and started agriculture in this place. And agriculture became prominent rather than hunting and animal husbandry. Whoever not involved in agriculture and business was called as Vyatras, which means outsiders. Oxen gained more importance in agriculture and transportation. Metals like gold, copper, iron, lead, brass, silver, and tin are referred in Vedas during this time. Iron artifacts were found in Atlantic of Uttar Pradesh. The technology of converting iron to steel was found in West Asia, and later it reached Eastern countries. This was evident by the artifacts which were found in Atlantic of Uttar Pradesh during the period of 8th century BCE. Next is about political system. As we have seen, the people of post-Rig Veda period were settled in Gangetic Valley. The tribes were Kuru, Panchala, Vasha, Ushina. They have settled in Gangetic Valley, and to their east, Kosala and Videha tribes have settled. And it was Uttar Pradesh, northeastern Uttar Pradesh and North Bihar areas. Angas and Magad tribes settled in present Bihar areas. They were considered as enemies by the sages. Pundras were in the far east of Orient settlement, and Andhras were in the south. They were called as untouchable during this time. In Atharva Veda, a king was described as the one who rules all is like the god in human form. King was equivalent to God, and he was a representative of God. And the kings were performing Rajasuya, Ashwamedha, Vajapeya, and Sarvamedha yagas to win people's respect. Next, move on to religious system of post-Rig Veda period. Lords like Rudra and Vishnu had gained a significant position during post-Rig Vedic period. It was believed that all things in the world are the result of yajnas, and the same notions, same ideas were incorporated even in Puranas like Mahabharata and Ramayana. In Upanishads, during this post-Rig Vedic period, new concepts were created like karma and rebirth of the soul. So today we have revised Harappan civilization, Vedic age, Rig Veda period and post-Rig Veda period. Hope you all would have understood. Go through this content again and again. You can understand easily. You can frame your sentences to write the homework as well as the test. Learn properly with this and do well in your test. All the best, children. Thank you.